Christian Barnard from Young Voices up late with me on the Final Five to talk about this and more. Welcome to the show, Christian.
Hey, Jim. Thanks for having me.
Okay, fill me in here. First of all, we don't have a lot of time, but so people know where you're coming from. Give me the Christian Barnard story, where you went to school, what you went to school for, and how much you're in hock for right now.
I went to Messiah College in Pennsylvania. I graduated 2 years ago. Studied philosophy and economics, double major. I graduated actually, fortunately, with only about $5,000 in student loan debt. Part of that is because I graduated a year early. I picked the school because I had a lot of financial aid offered from them.
Mm-hmm. And that's something that really is a motivating factor for a lot of people when it comes to choosing colleges. And, you know, I think a lot of people who are watching, myself included, you know, I went through the whole student loan process. Right. Things have changed, though, drastically in the 20 years since I went to college. I know that the state school tuition in Pennsylvania has more than doubled. Mm-hmm. You know, some of these private schools are just through the roof. I remember when $30,000 was an astronomical figure for a year, and now that's a semester for a lot of schools. So, you know, we've seen a lot of change in education. There's no doubt about that.
Right, yeah. So the cost of college tuition has more than doubled since the 80s. So I would be the first to admit that you really do have a problem with college affordability. The reason I'd say that free college actually isn't the solution to that is because it doesn't actually hold the institutions themselves directly responsible. One alternative that I like is what are called income sharing agreements. Mm-hmm. These are agreements that are actually alternatives to traditional student loans, where a group of private investors or the colleges, universities themselves will basically foot the bill for some of all of the student's education. And what that student does, based on their major and the university they're at, will promise some fixed portion of their future income in the future. So that way, it kind of realigns the incentives of these institutions to become more cost effective. That's an alternative I like a lot more than traditional student loans.
So let's talk about the two plans right now. I know Bernie Sanders talked a lot about free college tuition when he ran 4 years ago. Elizabeth Warren came out and said, okay, we're going to forgive student loan debt if you meet certain benchmarks. So
right.
That was already in the hopper. Then Bernie Sanders came out with this plan, and he actually introduced it as a bill as part of his role as a United States Senator to just forgive student loan altogether. And look, a lot of people hear that, and they love the idea. They love that idea, but the reality is, you know, for people like me, I paid my way through college. People 20, 30, 40 years before me paid their way through college. Why is there the need now to forgive that debt?
What I'll say is it's so frustrating to hear these proposals where they would essentially wipe out indiscriminately all of student loan debt. As somebody who really struggled to make sure that I didn't come out of college with a lot of student loan debt, along with the countless others who were more strategic about the investments they made, they have to be so frustrated right now when they see these indiscriminate proposals that basically would wipe out student loan debt for people who borrowed recklessly, people who are benefiting from law degrees, medical school degrees. They're benefiting from the investments they made in those educations. So honestly, I think that we need to just reassess education. It's an investment in your future.
I think, though, because, again, it goes back to the change in the cost, and I think it behooves a lot of the institutions, the private institutions, and really states as well, that are supposed to be funding, that are supposed to be subsidizing higher education to a certain point. They've kind of disengaged from that process. So while I understand that there are people who make dumb decisions going for certain degrees that in the grand scheme aren't going to pay off, you know, there are still people who are going through the system honestly, where you have states not picking up their fair share, colleges that are spending too much on certain things, athletic facilities, new dorms, whatnot. You know, it's a 50-50 proposition, if that, to trim the costs.
Right. So I agree with you to the extent that I think the institutions really do need to be held accountable. But again, I'd go back to the point that free college actually doesn't do that. It looks at the sticker prices of these colleges and essentially says, all right, whatever you're saying is your sticker price this year, we'll foot the bill. Yeah. Again, I want innovation that makes it so these colleges have more of a skin in the game, more of an investment of making sure their students are actually succeeding in the labor market. That way they're going to cut costs, but also invest in the programs that are actually paying dividends to their alumni.
Yeah, it's a conversation I think is long overdue, not just on the federal level, but state by state. We can't have that tonight, but we could have it at some other time. Christian Barnard, thanks for coming in tonight.